Hello everyone, Road to Superbowl episode 2 for 2026 NFL preview, and here we are today, maybe to a surprise, unveiling the second team that I think will finish the second lowest in this division, San Francisco 49ers. And boy oh boy, 49ers are really a tough cookie in terms of how do you predict this team? How do you evaluate this team? There was so many things last year and even entering the season that are like, okay, we know what we are going to expect, or probably we don't. Before we deep dive in why this team is really hard to evaluate, I would really appreciate if you could leave a like, if you could leave a comment, if you could recommend this to some of your friends that are also watching NFL, want to learn something. It would be really nice to get the feedback from you guys. So thank you very much for that, and let's start. So, why are 49ers really tough to evaluate? Well, they finished last in this division last year, 6-11. But that year was tragic. Really tragic for them. I mean, Ricky Pearsall getting shot, unfortunately, not killed, being able to make a comeback to even being a player in 2025 was kind of a miracle. And then the misfortunes of this team just did not stop there. Not to mention a lot of injuries, but we are talking about a tragic situation. Charvarius Ward lost his 1-year daughter. Trent Williams and his wife were expecting twins. One they lost during pregnancy, second during birth. So the amount of tragedies that this team had to deal with last year was just crazy. And those are definitely the type of things that it transcends when you are a fan. I'm supposed to hate 49ers, but boy, I could not do that for last year. I felt super sorry for them. I hope they can recover mentally and just, continue with their life as great as it's possible, I would guess. So good luck to Charvarius, Ricky, and Trent, and all their families. I hope and wish you nothing but the best. And I absolutely understand why Charvarius was like, I cannot stay here. So, okay. With that aside, look, that year was just really, how can you really focus on football during such times? It was insane. Then you had a lot of injuries. And suddenly, this team was just not working. It was not all due to this. There were some questionable play calling, especially in terms of defense. Some players perhaps did not reach their potential last year. But overall, really tough to get any whole picture about last year's season. And to me, I'm not saying I throw it out of the window, but I definitely discount it as much as I would do for any team just going through such a hard period of time. That aside, they are entering the season with almost 100 million in dead cap hit. What does it mean? They are paying 100 million of their actual cap salary of this season towards players that are no longer on the roster. That happens when you are trying to expand your Super Bowl window, when you are pushing the can down the road, and you are adding void years towards your guy's contract. And, someday is the payday. And for 49ers, it's this year. Also, it happens when you have experienced and highly paid veterans and you decide to trade them, like Deebo Samuel, for example. So almost 100 million of under 300 cap space that they are using, quote unquote, on people no longer on the roster. So that's really hard to evaluate, but it's not like they are going into the season with 2/3 of the cap space of everyone else, because they are still pushing Ken down the road. So for example, Brock Purdy's cap hit number for this season is just 9 million, which coexists with end of his rookie contract, but still, there is a lot of that. So don't underestimate them, that they are not using this as a rebuild season for sure. Also, I would say the last thing why they are hard to evaluate is they've lost so many players. It has some connotation with the cap space, but Deebo Samuel, you are talking about Tano Ahufanga, you are talking about Dre Greenlaw, you are talking about Aaron Banks. They've lost on Jordan Mason, for example, like Charvarius Ward, we already talked about, like pretty much towards every single part of this roster, they lost someone that, entering last year, we would say, well, they are part of the starting lineup. They are guys that they are going to count on. So, with that being said, and knowing how Mr. Lynch, their GM, actually is not very good with their, I would say, day 1, day 2 picks, is this roster like good enough to, I would say, satisfy the fans of 49ers? Because, well, I would say they kind of expect this team to at least be a playoff team, but probably division winner, Super Bowl contender, and I'm probably not there yet. But let's talk about this roster, let's talk about what they did in the draft, and see why I made those conclusions, where I ultimately predict them to end up, and what do I think about their future. So, in terms of draft, it was kind of pretty simple. Last year, they could not stop the run. This year, Robert Saleh is back, and it was like, well, we don't have buddies in this defensive line. We need to get buddies, and definitely guys that are more run defenders than pass rushers, because we have, I think, Nick Bosa. Also, I would say if you talk or know someone to talk about with Chris Kotsurek, who is defensive line coach, it was like, well, this guy is one of the highly praised defensive lineman coach in the league, but it's hard to do when you really don't have too many pieces to work with. So here are the pieces. They've invested in them. Michael Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West. Really, the narrative was clear. We need bodies, we need good run defenders, and pretty much what are we trying to do under Robert Saleh is going to be preaching, again, strong football, tough defensive line, tough mindset, really stopping the run, and then let Nick Bosa cook on 4 downs, which is something that they were still able to do last year with the part of cooking on the 3rd down. The problem is they did not get many times opportunity to do that because they just could not stop the run on 1st and 2nd downs. With that being said, am I necessarily saying this is they got some tremendous values in these players? I felt like not really. I think all West, Collins, and Williams were, I would say, properly drafted, perhaps slightly reached on some of those picks, but I feel like they were good value in this draft. It was kind of hard to not get a good value on the defensive line, so this was really good draft to do what 49ers did. Where I do have a problem with their draft is what they did in between. And Upton Stout and Nick Martin, both to me were reaches. Nick Martin was outrageous reach. I felt like this is a player that, I don't know, 6th, 7th round, okay, perhaps 5th, but 3rd round, Don Lynch, what are you doing? I don't know. As of now, this guy is listed as the starter next to Fred Warner, and well, let me tell you, that's one of the reasons why I'm lower perhaps on this team than general public, is because I think if he starts, he's going to be liability. As simple as that. In terms of Upton Stout, I feel like there were better corners on board. Again, I felt like he was more 4th, 5th round corner, so again, reach in my eyes. I understand why they like him. Again, he is listed as a starter right now. And again, you are going from Charvarius Ward to Upton Stout. There are question marks, for sure. Overall, this draft strategy was kind of as I expected, but the usage of resources beside the main point, which was stronger D-line, I did not like. But now let's talk about their lineup, and we will start as usual with their offensive line and quarterback. So Brock Purdy get paid. How I feel about it? Well, I'm happy for him. Being Mr. Irrelevant and make such a bag, nothing but a praise. And I think he definitely earned it. Last year, preseason, there were some heat about me grading him as important starter, kind of in that 3rd tier of quarterbacks, somewhere around top 10 to top 13. Your, I would say, Dak Prescott's of the world, Baker Mayfield's of the world, I have in the Jared Goff. I have in the tier. Jordan Love. I guess Kyler Murray could be in the tier. Like those type of guys, I ranked him there. And that was definitely a year where Trent Williams was not there for a couple of games. The offensive line was struggling, as you would expect them without Trent Williams. CMC was not healthy. Debo was not healthy. Brandon Knight was not healthy. Like he didn't have this amazing amount of weaponry that you just can like cook with, and perhaps even I could like quarterback, for them to get like 2 yards occasionally. No, this was offense built for him, around him. He was the guy that was pushing the needle. He was the guy that this offense was standing on, and he delivered. Man, he delivered. Maybe you don't see it because of 6-11 record, but he was on point. To me, it was not enough for me to raise him towards that amazing starter category, but he definitely like cemented himself in that important starter for me, at least. And when I think about it, 53 million a year, which he got on average, the deal that starts from next season, so it's not even from this one, I can live with that for sure. I think it's given where the cap space is, that's kind of like what I would argue like 47 million last year would be, in terms of like how the salary cap increases and how the value of the contract is going to expectedly look like in a couple of years. And I think this is exactly the price that you are okay paying Brock Purdy. If it was around 60, I would probably say no. I would think this is an overpay. And I had that idea that 49ers could have gone for Shedder Sanders in this draft, especially when he was falling like into 4th round, because I mean he's much worse than Brock Purdy, but I think he could run this offense to a significant degree, very similar to what Brock does. And I was thinking that perhaps giving Brock what do you call it? When you give him like 1 year deal, franchise tag, franchise tagging Brock and having Shedder, 1 year sit behind, could have been an option after the season. The thing is, Brock probably was not like up for that, and he might have held out, so it was probably not an option. So that could have been something like 2 years, 130 million, so overpay, but not commit. I think that could have been an option. This is pretty much like thinking slightly outside of the box, treating the NFL QB contract slightly differently that they are treated right now in the modern game. It's kind of my approach, how I would try to like coexist with those players when I'm like not super certain that they are going to be top 5, top 7 guys, which, truth to be told, I'm not certain that Brock is going to reach that level. He's not the most traitsy guy, and he might just well be on his like pinnacle of his quality, which is still pretty damn good player. Again, worth 53 million a year, in my opinion, into nowadays salary cap. And you have to add, because he's in NFC. Like if this was the guy that, if you are Steelers, if you are Steelers, you would kill, quote unquote, for having someone like Brock Purdy, but if I would be Steelers in this imaginary situation, would I pay 53 million for Brock Purdy a year? I would not, because he has to go in this division. He would be already 3rd best QB for the duration of that contract. And if I did not feel like he can ever reach that level, which I don't think that Brock actually has eliteness in him, then I would not pay it. Given that he is in NFC, there is, at least in my opinion, the best QBs are just like one or maybe just even like half a tier above him in this conference. You can definitely like think about winning the conference kind of ongoingly with Brock Purdy. So enough about Brock. I felt like he had really good year that was kind of shadowed in like the ugliness that was 49ers season from both performance on the field and situations off the field. Who are the guys protecting Brock Purdy? And as you can see, I have offensive guard still unnamed here because as of right now, there is Ben Barch listed as their starter. And truth to be told, I don't even have his card created. And obviously, like creation of the card takes some time. It's like 2, 3, 4 minutes, perhaps, whatever. Like, I could have obviously made that cut, but I was like, does he deserve it in a way? I'm like, 1,500 snaps, 4th round pick. Never really felt like great about him. In my eyes, he's probably just a solid backup. I wouldn't not put him even in a good backup category. I'm struggling to see like him being a starter and not being a liability. So I was like, well, okay, let's bang on this one. Let's bang on this take, and I hope that Ben Bartch is going to show me. And after 5 weeks, or when we will do revisit, like I would say it's probably after third of the season, and he will be like, you dummy, how you do not have my card ready? And I would be nothing but happy for it. But as of right now, if he's your starter, you better hope that Trent Williams is happy and ready to go, because if not, like that left side of the line could look really terrible. Like Jake Brendel is kind of solid player. I mean, you can go with Jake Brendel into the season, but you better have you should not have a liability next to him, because like this is a double team that I think could get picked on, like especially in some matchups like against the Giants. I think they could feast on these guys. And the problem that I have with 49ers, like one of the problems is when you look at the depth for offensive line, it's kind of Andrew Dillard and Spencer Burford. So like okay-ish veterans, but I understand actually, like it makes more sense why Ben Bartch is like listed as a starter, because like there perhaps is a theoretical upside with him that I have not yet noticed in his career. But overall, like you are really looking at this offensive line, and Trent Williams is obviously a star. He's 37, he's going to be 38 during the season. Like, is he mentally there after what happened last year? Is he physically still there? Because he's 37. If not, you are looking at this offensive line and like, well, oh my God, we are so lucky that we hit on Dominic Puni, though Dominic is amazing run blocker. In terms of pass pro, he has some limitations. You have kind of your average solid right tackle in Colton McKivitz, nothing special. And then you don't have much of a depth, you don't have quality. Like this online could struggle. Like if Ben Bartch is at least slightly solid and Trent is good to go, this is a fine line that should not prevent you doing from what you want to do. It's still one of the worst pass protecting offensive line in the league. So that's one of the credits that Brock Purdy does not necessarily get acknowledged by the wide public, that the O-line, it's not necessarily the best O-line in the league, let's face it. And people probably disregard it because he has Trent Williams there. Also, there is scheme and the way he distributes the ball that goes around the inability of this O-line to really pass protect for a longer period of time. So that's about scheme, it's about Brock, and they it's similar to what they do in Miami. Ball goes quickly out of his hand, and they can lesser the pressure on this offensive line doing something they are not necessarily comfortable doing. But where there's definitely, at least in my eyes, huge difference between Brock and Tua is when there is true throwback situations when the Caps they need to actually pass protect. They cannot throw the ball within 1.5 2 seconds. Brock Purdy can work the pocket. He can do some magic. I wouldn't say he's a great athlete, but he's smart and he's really useful with his legs. He's able to prolong some situations, and even with below average offensive line in front of him, he can work magic on third down. So that's definitely one of the quality that if you look at Tua and Brock Purdy, I have Brock's there's much bigger difference, even though in other areas they have some similarities. Okay, so that was your offensive line. Again, one of the reasons I'm not super high on this team, and what super high means some people think they are going to be Super Bowl favorites, so that's the expectations for some people, is this O-line and the depth. scares me a little bit. In terms of weaponry, once upon a time, this was probably easy, best room in the league, like CMC, Kittle, Ayuk, Jennings, and Debo. Like nobody had that like 2 years ago. Right now, there are more questions. Brandon Ayuk coming off season-ending injury. Juwan Jennings is now reporting to hold out of the camp if he is not receiving a new contract. Well, let's be real, like his contract is underpaying him a ton. Ricky Pearsall, okay, so everybody like is going to be like, okay, so he's now going to show up. Like it's unfortunate that we did not see him for first half of the season. Still, like he needs to show up. Like there is not a given that he's going to be amazing first round talent. Like Ladd McConkey and other guys that were drafted around him or after him. Demarcus Robinson, to me, sneaky, really, really good signing, especially if one of these guys cannot go. Like for a lot of the time, he's like not wide receiver number 4. To me, like he's kind of that sneaky wide receiver 3 in some situations, and as of right now, I would say he's slightly better than Ricky Pearsall, and to get him for average was like $4 million a year because 2.8 is like void years. Again, they are using those. On this market, I mean, this was one of the sneaky best signings of the offseason. And to me, he's probably not going to be like the high volume target guy, but a guy that's going to get crucial targets and somehow is going to like make the news pretty much every week because he can be very well used by the great schemers, and Kyle Shanahan obviously is that. Then we talk about George Kittle, and to me, that's by far, not by far, he's the best weapon they have. I mean, let's hope the age doesn't come for him. It should not. Like, at least last year, he did not lose a step at all. To me, he's the best tight end in the league. He's the only tight end that I have elite starter next to. So to me, he's a tier above the other guys. And it's just like overall complexity of his game. He can block and he can receive. He's a huge threat after the catch. Like there's nothing this guy cannot do. And last year I felt like Brock Purdy and George Kittle, they were really the leaders, especially of the offense. Like they refused to just lay down and give up. They tried, even though like playoffs was not an option. They really put it their best efforts. And George just is like that. Who have not watched Receivers, I recommend you to do so. Though, like, for some people after watching it, they did not like George as much as I did. I'm like, okay, weird, but I let you guys be the judge. And then, one of the biggest wildcards on this team is Christian McCaffrey. What is Christian McCaffrey entering 2025-2026 season? I don't know, man. I don't know. Like, the elite starter I have next to him is recognition of him 2 years ago, or like in 2023-24 season. Last year, he saw some snaps before he needed to be, kind of held off again for injury. He did not look necessarily great in those snaps. So, is he that? He's running back that has a lot of miles under his belt. He was obviously, at his prime, the best dual threat in the league, in my eyes. What is he now? I don't know. I really don't know. So this is a huge wildcard for this team, huge question mark, because if we see version of CMC from 2023-2024, 2022-2023, then it's like, it's going to be hard for this, for my prediction of them at the end of the day not making playoffs to hold on, though I have it by like slim margin. So CMC at his full power, he would definitely be that. But is he going to be? At this point, I'm really not certain. So like here, okay, can you see Ricky? Here's Ricky. All right. Okay, so here we are. Now, this was your weaponry. Still, like, if everybody is healthy at the peak of their power, it's still one of the best, if not the best group of weapons. But there are massive question marks about several of them. Now, let's take a look at backups for this offense. We already talked about O-line. let's spend 30 seconds on Mac Jones. To me, him going here makes total sense. Kyle Shanahan loves him in the draft process. Is he next Baker Mayfield, Sam Darnold? I don't really think so. I don't think he has those traits that these guys had. But could he carve out a nice role as like Daniel Jones type of guy, Jimmy Garoppolo, Jacoby Brissett, like kind of this bridge starter / very, very nice backup to have? I think that's what like spending time here could do for Mac Jones as his career. In terms of rest of the offensive weapons, Isaac Guerrero as a backup running back, I think he looked very solid. I was surprised that they were like so easy to let go Jordan Mason, especially like when I really struggle to like be for sure like happy where like CMC is at this stage of his career. So let's hope for the 49ers that they know what they're doing. In terms of other depth, they are not really deep in terms of wide receivers. Like their wide receiver 5 is Jacob Cowing, who pretty much did not show anything in his rookie season. And you know, when you as of right now, there are 3 questionable guys on this roster in terms of wide receiver, which is Ayuk, which is Jennings, and which is Presol. There might be a time when he needs to, play like a free. And is he there? I don't know. Like I had high expectation, and the fact that he really did not make a team last year that much. He returned some kicks, but that was pretty much it. Also, there were some reports that I think he missed a training session or like were late. That's why they scratched him off a game. So this year, wide receiver 5, man, it's not, again, struggling to necessarily like see the depth for this team. Okay, this was the offense. Now let's shift towards this defense. And we already talked about this. This was all about defensive line. They brought Alfred Collins, they brought Michael Williams, they brought Bryce Huff, a lot of the bodies. So it's still about Nick Bosa. Let's be fair. Like Nick Bosa is like 3 tiers above the next best player on this defensive line, and it's good for you because it's Nick freaking Bosa. You have Nick Bosa. It's also bad for you because if he goes down, I really struggle to see how this defense would function unless, like, let's say all of the young players hit, or Bryce Huff is going to have like resurrection season under Robert Saleh. So we don't need to spend time with Nick Bosa. He's to me one of the 5 to 7 best edges in the game. I would probably still give the nod to Myles Garrett, and then there are like 5 to 6 guys that are on insane freaking elite level, and you just kind of take your poison who do you like the most. But now let's shift towards Bryce Huff, because if Nick Bosa goes down, he's probably there like by far the best chance for a pass rush in terms of this group. And with Bryce, like he had pretty good season with Robert Saleh at Jets, and then he got really nice back from the Eagles. I was like, yeah, they overpaid for him in my eyes last off season, and then he played like under 300 snaps. He was scratched from Superbowl, and after the trade, he kind of shit-talked Eagles that he didn't feel great there. There was obviously responses that he just took his back and didn't really work that hard, which is like kind of crazy to do when you are on a Super Bowl winning roster. But like, there probably is some truth to that. So again, if we talk about huge question marks that I actually have about this team, it's like, what is Bryce Huff? Is he more Robert Saleh, Jets version of Bryce Huff, guy that's actually going to try and could be legit number 2 pass rusher for this team? Or is he a version of the Eagles where he's more like disrupting force and like he secured his contract and then it's like whatever, I don't give a damn anymore. I would lean probably to the first side, especially when he decided, or like I think he had like definitely some part of the decision was on him, and like reconnecting with Robert Saleh. Like, I mean, if you think it's hard to flunk out on the Eagles, I would say it's even harder to flunk out under Robert Saleh. But like, I would say it's pretty damn hard to flunk out under Super Bowl winning team. So we will really see. The rest of the guys, I feel that they are here to really stop the run. With Mikael Williams, he should be your best chance for a pass rush after Bryce Huff and Nick Bosa. I don't think it's going to necessarily like come year one towards the point that he would be like an influential pass rusher, but like he could get somewhere around 5 sacks, which would be kind of a nice complement next to Bosa and hopefully Bryce Huff for this group. In terms of how do I rank them, well, it clearly has a plan. It's stop the run, get big bodies, and let Nick Bosa cook. That plan is obviously highly dependent on Nick Bosa. It's also highly dependent on like these guys being actually able to step in and be great run defenders kind of out of the get-go, which is not necessarily super simple because like obviously you are going against like 40 pounds heavier guys than you were going against at college. And with Bryce Huff, like there is definitely huge variance in terms of how he's going to rank. So if you look at the backups, Yeturgis Matos, Kevin Givens, Michael Williams, I would actually think that Michael Williams could be a starter over Bryce Huff, and they might use Bryce Huff as like a pass rush specialist. And definitely like in terms of if I expect them to really try to go and like pretty much get to third down, really stop the run and hope that the pass rush of just Nick Bosa for first 2 down is enough for like offenses to not have their way like with passing game, especially if Bryce Huff is a little bit like out in terms of like being in. Yeah, he's out of being in. That's weird in terms of commitment. So that's the defensive line. Again, like similar to O-line, it should be functional. It should allow you what you want to do. Here, I would say you are slightly more deep, but really slightly. And also, I would say it's really like that one player going down can drop you like 1 or 2 tiers in terms of quality of this D-line because it's really like his mere presence allows you to really construct it this way. And then behind those guys, there are linebackers, of course. And Fred Warner, to me, he's the best linebacker in the league. He got paid this offseason, something over $20 million a year, and he probably is still underpaid. Like, this dude is freaking awesome. Again, like, is there anything that you want to add? Because this dude can do everything. Again, like, if we praised guys on the offense, you have to also praise Fred Warner, you have to praise Nick Bosa, because it would be easy on bad culture teams to just not give your best in games that are essentially meaningless in terms of can you make the playoffs. But these guys gave it their all every single snap, and that's showing you how this team and this culture is built very, very well under Kyle Shanahan, at least in my eyes. But then you go, and linebacker 2 is another spot, and this is very rare that I actually don't have a player there, because as of right now, they are listing Nick Martin as their starter. To me, he ain't the starter in NFL. Like, it's point and simple. Like, I don't think so. Like, I think he could get really picked off, and like, I mean, Fred Warner is like here, and Nick Martin's like, like that's the biggest gap that could be, at least in my eyes, in terms of like really these are your 2 starting linebackers that like within doubt you want to start the league now. And okay, towards Nick, like I have been very, very critical of this pick. He has traits, and like Fred Warner, if you want someone to mentor you, kind of use you as a joystick, he could do that. So I kind of understand, but I think it's still a huge, huge risk to just think that this can work. Like, obviously, Fred Warner like covers a lot. He can do like if he's alone out there, he's going to do great amount of job. And if Nick Martin is just doing it the best way possible, it's like, okay, I will listen to whatever Fred wants me to do. I will do it. I will just be athletic body that's just going to smash. And just don't think. Like, Fred's going to say, run this, you just run this. And, like, you cover this space. That could work. But again, like I don't think there is a team that's going to have worse starting LB2. And yes, if you want to have really a weakness on your team, LB2 next to Fred Warner, you can get along with that. But I mean, still, this is a question mark, man. At least for me, a huge one. Now, let's talk about the secondary, because again, when we think about 49ers of the past, like their roster is stacked. And I'm not saying they are not stacked. We'll show you Jason Pinnock. Hello, he's there. I'm not saying they are not stacked, but when you look at this, it's like, okay, you have pretty good slot corner in there on Jalen Ramsey. I would say one of the top 5 slots in the game, which is really nice. But he's not necessarily a guy that you want to play outside. And then you have Ronaldo Green, who is ideally A2, and then you have Upton Stout, who is ideally A4. And now you are asking Green to be 1 and Stout to be 2 in terms of outside corners. Obviously, they're young. Like you are banking on the future improvement, and don't get me wrong, like they are kind of retooling, but they are not rebuilding. Like they expect results this year. This is not a team that is in rebuild. This is a team in like retool. Like they let several veterans go and trying to replace them with their youth. But in terms of secondary, you are looking at this and you have guys that are in Jair Brown. I think he's the most experienced guy with 2 years under his belt. And you have Malik and Ronaldo Green with 1 and Upton Stout as a rookie. Obviously, this could be pretty good secondary in year, in 2. I think those guys have really nice potential. But you kind of need them to be good right now if you want to, be a contender. And are they? I don't think so. Even when I look at them as of right now, to me, this is a bunch of nice, interesting young players. I'm super happy that they are getting a chance, and I really see the vision. But that's where I'm again lower on this team as of this season, because, in terms of secondary, there is a huge amount of questions. And in a scenario, if Nick Bosa is not there and you are not able to generate pass rush consistently, I think the secondary could get really picked on. If it's really, I would say, unstable in terms of if everything is right, if Nick is there, Bice is good, we can stop the run, Nick Martin is not absolute liability, Upton Stout can hold. It's it should be functional defense, and you expect Robert Saleh, Chris Kuturek, and eventually really make this defense very, very good. But how much are you banking on that for the season? For, let's say, first 8 weeks? Because, as we will see, their schedule is pretty hard in terms of the start. So that's where I'm probably differentiating from, I would say, general public or even Vegas when we talk about the over-unders on the 49ers, because I feel as of now there is just way too many things that has to go wrong for this team to function the way they want to, and I think they will improve. Will it be too late in terms of where the season is going to be at? You let me know. What do you think? And now, before we end this, let's take a look at the schedule for this team. Before we do that, just in terms of depth in the secondary, there is not really too much to speak of. Jair Brown, kind of a solid player coming from Seattle. Marcus Eagle, solid pick in this year's draft. Nothing special. So again, slightly thinner. I would say you have 6 to 7 guys that you probably trust, which is good enough. But you have one really, really good player, and the rest is you hope that they are going to be really good. And as of right now, just hope they won't be a liability. So now let's take a look at the schedule, and they have a pretty hard start, at least in my eyes, and that's where kind of my negativity on this team goals, but it's like negativity. I am still predicting them to be 9-8 team, so over 500, really being in playoff hunt and perhaps getting there. So I'm not like super down on them. I just don't feel like the schedule in terms of where the roster is right now, coinciding with some of the injuries, some of the perhaps, can they work out things with John Jennings? I feel like they could really start behind the 8 ball and not necessarily get there. So when you see the first 6 games, they have four teams on the road: Seahawks, Saints, Rams, and Bucks. I mean, out of these games, they should beat Saints, but it's not like a gimme. And the rest of those teams, pretty hard to beat. And for young, established D-line, like, are they going to be there? Can Robert Saleh really make them work week 1 when they haven't played together at all? I think there's going to be some process of learning how to play together, how to play off each other's strengths, and it's going to take time. Also, week 3, week 4, at home against Cardinals, against Jags, they are easy games. So actually, I think they are going to start behind the 8 ball 2-4. Then Falcons at home, at Texans, at Giants. Again, that Giants game, and even the Texans game, those are the 2 where if the offensive line is not at least in a good spot, so Ben Bartch is not a liability, or they've somehow figured out the guard spot, and I would say Trent Williams and Dominic Puny are healthy. If some of those things are not true, that I just don't envy what Brock Purdy is going to go through, because that D-line of the Giants is effing nasty, and what the Texans could be cooking, kind of not the revenge game, but obviously knowing coming from 49ers, they could something special. So those are 2 really hard games on the road. At Cardinals, again, this is where the Cardinals D-line should start to figure things out. And at home, you have Falcons, you have Rams, you have Panthers. Neither one of these are super easy games. So 3-3, I think it's a justifiable record. And is Brock Purdy a franchise guy in terms of can he ascend to be that amazing starter? Something that I'm not super certain about. If so, now we're talking, because those could be the games where he can show that, at least in my eyes, because especially that stretch with Falcons, with Texans, Giants, Rams, and Cardinals in terms of their D-lines, if he can just eat on them, perhaps it's going to be time to change his rating towards an amazing starter, and definitely earn even more respect of general public, not because I think I respect the hell out of Brock Purdy. And then the rest of the season, I think they are going to close strong, because I think at that point of the time, you can really count on this D-line. I think the secondary is going to be not top 10 in the league, but definitely good enough to be at least average. And also the schedule is quite easier. At Browns, at home, you are hosting Titans, at Colts, at home against Seahawks, at home against Bears. I think they are going to close strong 4-1. They might even close 5-0, which would, I think, put them really on the verge of playoffs, and probably 10-7 record would be enough. So I'm lower on them. I think their Vegas over-under is somewhere around 9.5 or 10. So I think they are going to win 9. And to me, why? It's there is just way too many questions that I have about this team. And it was really fun in terms of trying to predict them, trying to really dig deep. Also, it was not fun in terms of how to accommodate for the tragedies of last season. How do you try to do the mental gymnastics and try to project some of the players? So that was really effing hard and not pleasant. But of course, my feelings doesn't matter at this point. It's all about what this team and those guys went through. And overall, I ended up I have too many questions for me to say this is going to be a playoff team for sure, that I project double-digit wins, but can I see them get there? Absolutely. I'm kind of sad that they hit so great on last year's draft, because I thought that at least for a year My Seahawks could have a really nice piece from these 49ers, but I don't think it's going to be the case. I think they're going to be nasty good, just not what, perhaps 2023 version of 49ers was. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for watching. Again, if you enjoyed this, leave a like, leave a comment, recommend this. I will appreciate the hell out of you guys. See you with the next one, where we reveal the team that's not going to win this division, at least in my opinion. It's between Seahawks and Rams. Leave a comment who you think I will be unveiling next. Bye.